which a lot of it I think we already knew. We just didn't have, I guess, the lined out information. Let me find our graph here. So this is the graph for a little bit blurry here, but basically these are different years. Blue is the 2015, and then all the way to the dark orange is 2022. These are the graphs of when kids are taking the online programs and when we're getting spikes. And you can tell it kind of stays pretty steady. The blue one here, dark blue up here, that was 2021. That was the beginning of that was right when COVID started. Yeah, as far as, yeah, you're right, that's not when, I guess, the technical COVID started, but that was the first full year of there was a big spike there because of how the classes were being handled, and that we had put out that, in 2020, I did that first exception. Right after that, the spike happened. And I think it was a direct result of that rule. So the green one there, you're right, that is the first year of COVID. And again, the spike happened right about the time that we went with that temp rule. Everybody went in and did their online. I don't know if they were doing it just to take advantage of the rule, if they were hoping that that was going to satisfy all of Hunter Ed. But either way, we saw those two spikes because of that. Other than that, it stays pretty steady. And that's the curious part of how we get our students in the classes, is because, you know, we got our spring people here that are looking for bear season and turkey season, and then you got your July, August, September that is looking for the big game hunting. The other part to that too, though, is if you notice, it doesn't kind of all the way trickle off until November time frame. And a lot of that is because a lot of the youth hunts extend into the following year. So they wait, you know, human nature is waiting until the last minute. That's one of the reasons why going to this 6-month expiration on those forms, I'm hoping will help prompt some action on their part.
So I want to make sure I understand what you got here in the graph. So this is when the kids actually take the online.
They've completed the online course.
So you have a similar graph that shows by year when they take the field day, or actual field day, not the online course, but they use but the same, you know,
yeah.
Data set for our field days.
That's something we're working on. I don't think we have that built yet, but we are working on that. It's something we discussed in a meeting about being able to overlay that next to this and see where that's at. Yeah. And on our side of things, we're trying to work on and control the things that we can from an agency standpoint. So we're trying to work on recruiting and also getting the word out about classes and stuff with our online outreach, Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff, and then also our messenger. Are you guys, anybody follow our messenger? Wow, really? Nobody? Okay, ODFW has a messenger that goes out. They try to do one monthly. And
what is a messenger?
It's an actual email.
So is that the title
Yeah.
of the, oh, okay.
It is email, right, Roger?
I thought you meant
Yeah.
the messenger app.
No. This is ODFW Messenger. It has highlights of things that are going on within the agency, programs we work with. Okay. Yeah.
So on the recruiting for the students part of it, is there something that we can do to have like a flyer that we can take down to like our local sporting goods stores, put them on the bulletin board and stuff, so we have classes on the ODFW site? We can post flyers at sporting goods stores. I know a lot of people like ODFW.
Yeah, you're welcome to post flyers. Do we still have a template for that? Yeah, I thought so. Should be on the instructor page. Yeah. So, yeah, it should be on the instructor page for doing that, and you're always welcome to put that information out there. So that's what we're working on, is trying to get more information out there about the classes that are available as quick as possible so we can get the classes full. And then we're also working on the recruiting end of things. We have, I think, 6 sportsman shows on the books. Is it 5 or 6? 5. That we have various volunteers helping us organize. Some of you guys are in the room that are helping organize those. And we're pushing heavy on the recruiting to get you guys more help out there in the field. And if you guys have anything in your area that would be a good spot to do something like that, sportsman shows, gun shows, please let me know. And we'll see what we can do to get somebody out to it, or get the information out if you have time. We'll support it with equipment and stuff to get that done. So we're trying to figure out how to flatten this curve so we don't get spikes all the time. Because how many of you guys have put up January and February classes and not had much for attendance? Most people have kind of quit doing January and February classes because of lack of attendance. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people do. But the goal is, if we can kind of understand the data better from this standpoint of when they're taking their online, I'm also going to work with the online program to, they already have a link that suggests that they go to register for a class, but I'm trying to figure out how to redo that a little bit so it's more prominent as something, maybe make it look like a step that they got to take rather than a suggestion. But we'll look into that, and as we get the information to be able to overlay when the kids are taking the field days, we'll do that. And then I'll share that on live stream, and then also send it out to all of you guys for your counties. Yeah.
Can you send a copy of that out as a PDF? So
Mm-hmm.
that we can print it out. I mean, I think I've seen that earlier versions of it in black and white. It's really hard to read. But if you can send the color version out, that's something I could share with the other instructors.
Yeah. Yeah. We can get this out. We'll make sure it's in color. As you guys can see, August, September, October tend to be our biggest months for them doing the online program. It also is when we see a drop-off in classes available, which, yeah, exactly. So that's why I bring up this point, is we're trying to figure out how to schedule better and plan and advertise better in order to flatten out the curve. If this online program stays this way is one thing, but our curve for when they come to classes should look different. Does that make sense? So we're trying to get them into your classes before you head out to the woods. Yeah, Brian?
So in 30 plus rental procrastination.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, good luck if we can come up with it. I mean, we've been battling this for a long time.
Yeah. We have been battling it for a long time, but there's a lot of different tools out there now that didn't used to exist. I think something that's becoming as elusive as like what do you call a completely a 4-point buck? I'd say even more elusive than that. Say a completely white buck. I don't know, or maybe a unicorn is what I'm starting to consider Vim. But Vim is coming. We'll talk about some updates for that later. And I'm really hoping that that tool is what they've been bragging about for the last several years. And we'll be able to have some tools in there to combat some of this stuff and help drive that.
How about putting an alert when a guy goes in to buy his license early in the year, having a little alert flash there, hey, sign up for Hunter Ed early, give them that message, that way everyone.
The hard part of that about that is not everybody has their Hunter Ed in their profile, even if they've taken it. It hasn't all been transferred over from the old data system.
You couldn't just make it a blanket thing for everyone. I mean, at least, or that might be.
Yeah, I don't know. I would think that we'd get a lot of pushback to make it a blanket thing. And then the other part to that, I mean, it's parents usually that go in and buy the licenses and stuff, but sometimes it's the kids that actually go in and do it themselves too. At least a lot of the ones I know go in and do it themselves. But it's alerting the parents that we've got to try to figure out how to do. And right now that's through outreach and messenger. And we'll see what Vim brings.
Is there some kind of incentive program that we can put in prior to those busy months to get them enticed to come in more to this?
There isn't currently, no. Any other questions on this? So, one of the things we're trying to update is our AC map and county map. So, this is something that Myrna's been working on for us. It shows all of our counties and our zones. And then over here under each heading has got your guys' information of who's in charge of each county. Yeah.
Are we going to be able to access this on the web?
Yeah, we can probably put it on the instructor page, but we'll also send it out in an email.
One thing that would, what if like, so like you clicked on the, say, Lane County, because we know the area coordinator, what if when you clicked on that, it then linked up and pulled up all the active instructors within that county?
It's something we could look at. It's definitely something that's possible, but it'd take some time.
Curious how many active instructors there are in each of the counties.
Yeah, well, that gets to be a tricky question too, because there's a difference in what you consider active. Is active somebody that actually teaches classes, or is active somebody that's passed all the background checks? And the system doesn't differentiate between the two. Hoping so. Because I mean, right now I have instructors that are listed as active that probably haven't taught classes in 2 or 3 years, but they cleared their background check and done everything they need to be considered an active instructor. They just haven't taught in a long time. Okay, so the idea that in coming up with these zones for me is compiling this data and being able to share it with you guys, but also having some idea of what we're asking your classes to cover. You know, am I asking Redmond to cover a class that's going to incorporate Portland kids? No, I'm not. This zone, I'm asking you guys as a zone we'll communicate as a group and try to cover the need for the zone within all of those counties in that zone. So it doesn't fall on one county to teach 300 kids and 200 be spread across every other county. Does that make sense?
One thing I've noticed, Jared, is doing my classes field days, I would say I'd have to get some old paperwork out. But I'm close to 50% of kids coming into Coos County that do not live in Coos County.
Mm-hmm.
And I get kids as far away as Kearney County, Wasco County. A lot of kids from the northwest up in the Portland area, the Oregon City. And I don't really understand why, because I look at the classes offered, but yet they migrate down south to Coos. I just don't understand what the issue is.
Well, from my experience in Hunter Ed, some of it can be like, I keep picking on Redmond, but that's just because I like to pick on Brian. But Redmond is somewhere where people like to go. So if I can take a weekend trip over there and get my kid Hunter Ed, I'll do that. They may not be from the area, but hey, it got a vacation and that happens some. But I think that's a small portion of the kids that travel. What it comes down to is what classes are they seeing first, and they pick the closest one that is available at the time they happen to look at the list.
Well, I know last year, I only put them out 1 month in advance.
Mm-hmm.
Because kids were signing up for one and not showing up until a later class. So I can put it out 1 month in advance. One class out of 30 kids, I had 5 local kids and all the rest come from out of area.
Yeah, I have lots of examples of that. One of my best ones is last year I went to John Day because we were getting tons of phone calls here. John Day needed classes and nobody had put up any classes, so we needed a class over there. So I posted classes. Could have held up to 45 kids over the weekend that I was over there. When I got over there, I got 30 kids over 3 classes, and out of the 30 kids, 5 were from John Day. I had people that drove all night long to come to that class. The only consistent problem I could find is that there wasn't anything in their local area, so they grabbed what had an open seat.
Well, that's what I'm told a lot.
Yeah.
What we see is
And then that also causes the no-show problem because they wake up on Saturday morning or they realize on Friday, oh, we got something else going on this weekend, or just simply, I don't feel like driving over the mountain tomorrow, and then they no-show. So that's part of trying to supply this data and come up with a plan of how we're going to share it and what we hope to utilize it for. I'm asking for more consistency of people looking ahead at their classes. You know, not everybody's going to be able to, for example, how many people could plan out all their classes for a year in advance? Okay, a couple can. How many could do 6 months in advance? Quite a few more. What about 3 months in advance? Okay, 3 months in advance is a huge help. Because if we have 3 months worth of classes on the board, then there is going to be enough classes scattered across the state that people aren't going to have to drive 6 hours to get to a class. That in itself will cut down on some of our no-show problems. Shawnette?
It's also important to get your course packet in as soon as the class is done so that I can process that, put the real information into our database that we've created, and compare that to the online certificates that are still outstanding that haven't completed yet. That way we kind of know where we need to have classes throughout the state.
Ivan?
I think we need to work on both on the red, when I order stuff, it doesn't have any usable as a field day.
Mm-hmm.
And I take the international class. I'm not sure that everybody understands that when they're getting involved in that.
Okay.
So how soon are you getting the data from the online companies?
We get a monthly report. Okay.
I get a weekly update as far as the kids that have completed and have their certificates.
Does that tell you what county they're from?
Yeah, all their demographics, so
So
that I put
Mhm.
that into this database, and we know how many kids have taken it and where they're located, and then when the course packets come in, we can compare and still see what's outstanding.
So if you're taking that data that they send you, okay, Unionville County has 20 kids in Unionville.
Right.
If you did online, you need a field day, oh, okay, thing, so maybe like, hey, we need 21.
And that's what we're trying to get ahead of.
That's the intent of what we're trying to do with this information is, and showing you this is how I intend on having the data shared. It'll be broken down by county, but it's also going to be based in zones. So you'll be able to see all the counties, anyone you want to look at, you can look at it. But what we're trying to do is block them in zones for kind of drivability purposes and coverage. Because again, we don't want anybody, just because one county's bigger than the other, I mean, you're going to get a ton of kids in Multnomah County that take Hunter Ed, but is there enough classes in Multnomah County to cover all those kids? And the answer is no, there's not. So the kids that letting you know about the counties surrounding you too is also affects your counts in your classes as far as who's going to sign up.
I'm sure myself as a team leader, I'm no different than anyone else in this room, but there's quite a process we go through to
Mhm.
organize a class. I got 5 instructors I gotta get organized.
Yep.
I gotta work with the school, I gotta work with the gun club, so we do start 3-4 months in advance to get that May class online. You know, and our May class just got listed, and it's a conventional class. But I started 2 months ago.
Mhm.
And so, not only are we trying to meet the parents and the students, we gotta meet our instructors.
Mhm.
And so it's not as simple as,
I get what you're saying, Clyde, and I'm not here to try to put pressure on you and tell you you got to do things a completely different way. What I'm trying to tell you is this is the data that's available and try to help you guys with that. And my only way to be able to solve the no-show problem and getting kids that from your area in your classes is to try to work with everybody on how we get these classes posted. Because if we only have a quarter of the counties putting classes up in the first 3 months of the year, that's where the classes are going to go.
you know as well as I do, it's like any other school teacher. The problem in the class is parents. It's not usually the students.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had a guy call me up and say, hey, when are you gonna have a Hunter Ed class? Because he knows I've been in Sandy for eons. And I said, well, we're gonna have a class in May. Oh, well, I don't think we can, I wanna go to the conventional class, but I don't think we can meet that class. So, that's not my problem.
No. It's got to be a priority on that part, on their part too, and we're never going to be able to fix that. All we can do is the best we can with putting the classes out when our instructor's available. I'm just asking that we try to, for those that can, please try to speed that the decision process up sooner so we can try to get the correct kids in the correct classes so we don't have so much travel scheduled. And it got worse during COVID than it had been in the past. But I hear people all the time tell me that their classes were having so many no-shows. And the data shows that it's kids that are signing up for the first class they see and then later signing up for a class closer to them.
So to fix that, Jared, can ELS implement a,
I don't know.
well, you know what I want gear tag?
Yeah, I don't know.
One health tag, so they probably would have that ability to say you can only be enrolled in 2023 in one.
I asked that same thing. I asked that thing about ELS, and I got told that it couldn't be done because every single class would have to have its own code and classification, and they'd have to go class by class and change a bunch of stuff, and it was just a non-starter when I approached that. So I don't know what VIM's capability is going to be on that end. When we talk about that later, we can bring that back up. Maybe Roger might have a better idea than I do. I don't know what to expect from VIM, or if that's going to be a possibility. I would hope that maybe we could code it somewhere where if they were signing up for a second class, it would enroll them for the other one. I don't know what those possibilities are. So.
Or even just a statement in there, you know, in red, that says, if you have already registered for another class and you're switching to this, please make sure you go back and cancel out of it. Just a reminder to them.
They can't currently in the ELS system.
So they can't have it.
Yeah, they have to call in and get a hold of licensing, and during different times of the year, depends on when it is, it can be a pain in the neck to try to get a hold of somebody in licensing, especially during reporting time and different things like that with mandatory reporting and the phone call volume we get. It's a whole nother, every little change we make creates a whole nother problem, so, yeah.
Are we gonna be restricted on size?
We're still restricted to 30 total, and I'm asking you guys to keep to no more than 15 kids per instructor available. I prefer closer to a 10-to-1 ratio, but no more than 15-to-1. Yeah.
Brian had a good idea, but that would really, could load up classes if you suppose you have the classes online early.
Yeah.
Kids get going. But if you have a program that is downloading that information and moving it, it should be able to, if you sign up for a set, you can only have one class in the system.
Yeah.
It automatically kick them out.
It makes sense to me to have that, but I don't know. I'm not part of the development program on that. And Roger?
Also, the attrition for no shows, on average, it's about 10% on a monthly basis. It may look like one class has half the people, but overall, those kids are still signed up for another class, and we know it, and they do that. So they're still getting the field day, even though they're not in there.
Go ahead.
So, you know, I know like for us, you know, tell us, you're pretty consistent when having the classes, February, March, whatever. Would there be a way, you know, we may not have the classes posted, but okay, if you have these classes upcoming where the parent can go in and look on the calendar, and you tell the calendar.
If they can't sign up for it, it won't change anything for that. They'll still sign up for whatever class they deem closest to them at that point. I think we can December 1.
December 1 you can?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The only catch to that is until January 1, when people go to sign up or look for it, they have to remember to change the year tab on the purchase catalog, because it'll default to the current year. So they'd be looking at 2022 and trying to figure out why they couldn't find your 2023 class.
I think they changed that, Jared, and when December 1 rolls around, ELS changes the system that makes 2023 at the top.
It wasn't this year, because we had problems with people not finding the classes that, yeah. Oh, okay. So it did. I had it backwards then. It did do that, but they were.
They were buying their 2023 daily permits for December.
Nice. That's helpful. Roger.
I would just throw that out that December 1, I think, ties with the using the electronic license system.
Yeah.
It's down with it. This is out of the second email after the main
We'll talk about it. We have VIM's part of the schedule later today. For some of us, namely me, it's not my favorite subject until it's in place. I'm tired of hearing about it and not seeing it. So basically, we're going to we'll continue to compile this data and work on getting it formatted where we can see both the online and the class completion data, and be able to share that with you guys. How frequently do you guys think that this would be useful information? Quarterly? Would that be good enough? Okay. The quarterly is going to give us the ability to have the most correct visual, so that we're scrambling month to month to get the data. One of the classes we were trying to use some of this data for, just to track kind of as a baseline, I went over to Burns to teach a class with Dave, and we tracked, before I left, all the students that had registered for the class, to see where they were at when they completed their online program. And about 90% of them weren't on the list. And we had everybody up to within a week of the class. So that's what we found when we got there, is everybody had done their class, their online, 2 or 3 days prior to the class. So that's where the data, and we need a little bit of a time gap to be able to have the data be accurate. Yeah.
Do you only monitor the ODFW 100 Ed online, or do you have the capability of going like to the NRA and seeing the kids take back?
We get the NRA. We have the NRA data too. It's part of this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I've noticed there's about 3 of them. Of course, our regular online is probably the major one used.
Mm-hmm.
But NRA, and then there's one other that I have got. I can't think of the name of it.
They're all Calcumi. The three main programs outside of NRA are all Calcumi. They're listed as like fresh air educators,
Yeah.
but they're all owned by Calcumi. So, yeah, we get the NRA data, and we have it put right in with the same one. Our top most used class is the Calcumi, I think it's huntered.com, which is the one that is supposed to be a direct copy of what's in our workbook, the Today's Hunter book. The other ones are different versions that other companies had developed, but then Calcami bought out the companies and then made them more consistent with the Today's Hunter.
Were you still needing people to look at some of those?
Yeah, we'll get to that too. We did just review the Today's Hunter magazine. We got those revisions back from some instructors that volunteered to do that for us, and we're going to format that in their online book and send it off to Calcami to have the Today's Hunter updated for things to fix things like mechanical broadheads now being legal in Oregon and whatnot, and hopefully fix a few other wording issues and stuff that we've had issues with the book over the years, and find out what the IHEA and Calcami is doing with this 10 Commandments thing. So, but that's a project that we're almost done getting completed. The online programs that he was just asking about, that is a project that I am asking for help with from you guys, anybody that's willing to. We got codes to be able to review the online programs for inaccuracies, problems, things that just shouldn't be there. And we have the 4 different programs that we're going to do. I'm asking whoever's willing to take one and review it and write down notes and where you find the information that needs updated and changed and get that back to us so that we can get that information to Calcami. The idea is, from my standpoint, is try to have at least 10 people look at each program, so we got multiple sets of eyes looking at the same thing, because I think we all know we'd find different things, different issues than somebody else would, because we look at it from a different perspective, or just how we process things is a little bit different.
Jared, is there a Western State online program?
No. There's just the Calcami and there's Calcami, NRA, there's a few others. They're tailored specific to your state. They have the base program, and then they go in and change things specific based on your state's needs. Everybody but the NRA program does that. NRA, you get what you get, is their idea. Any other questions on that? How many of you guys are still doing conventional classes? Good portion of you, good. Okay, we still get requests for it. We still got people that want it, and we're not changing. That's, as far as I'm concerned, that's never going to change, is doing the conventional classes. Personally, that's my favorite class to teach. But
We're trying to get that into the schools, and that's being treated as a convention. Powers High School and North Bend are doing the convention in school.
yeah,
So some of you guys want to approach some of the schools. They are coming around to it again like they did back when we were young.
yeah.
And I've found that it's working very well.
There's several people that are working on that within their schools and stuff and trying to get that going. I know, Dave, you've been working with some schools and stuff too. Yeah, we just haven't had the capacity to get involved in it yet. There's so many different ones going on in different places, and we just haven't had the time to.
Everything I sent you in that letter, I'd be happy to share it with you from Lincoln County, and I took it to superintendent, now she's leaving, but, everything in that letter that I gave you was approved by the Department of Education. So, the whole concept of that, Lincoln, one school in Lincoln County, Newport High School, has a plan. May I go on, Jared?
Mm-hmm.
They have it's taken several years to get it developed. It's called Oregon Outdoor been approved by the Department of Education. It's an elective class, 10th grade elective class, afternoon part that I get in is usually in the spring semester. They'll do CPR. The kid's gonna get a CPR credential. The kid's gonna get an ATV credential, Oregon Voter Education Card credential. Then they do surfing, they've done a report, that's with instructor, so they go surfing in there. Hunter Ed fits into this curriculum too. And it works, and it's always using 28 kids, and, I proposed a pilot program somehow to get it started, and nobody seems to, like, you can't get to the next step.
Well, what I did was I got a whole, they had what's called an outdoor class at North Bend.
Right.
And an instructor stepped forward and said, I could make this work. He incorporated a lot of other things over the year
Right.
with Hunter Ed. He set aside, I think, 6 or 7 weeks just for Hunter Ed. Used our visuals and stuff on the big screen, and I would come in and chip in where it was needed during classes. The only thing they wouldn't let me do on school site was fire a fire. And our gun range, between the RSOs and my instructors, as a team, we went out there was 5 instructors, 5 RSOs. We put through 100 kids live fire in one day. But it was all due to this one instructor. Gotta have that one instructor that will step forward.
And that's what we've found. But my problem is, I only get this one opportunity, I get 28 kids, and then they have to take the written test to pass it for the school to get a grade in the class.
Right.
But then it's an option where they want to pay the $10 to go to the live fire event, and I instantly lose half my class.
Yep, I had the same problem.
And if that's what it is, that's what it is. But at least I've gotten the dummy guns in, done the safe firearms handling.
Yep.
And I want to get that to the 28 kids, not the 14 kids that I wrote.
And a lot of it is personally going in and talking to the instructor, because they're the ones that have to push it. The only other thing I've been doing is I've been with some of our other schools down in Coos County, is they want me to come in after school and use it as an extracurricular after-school activity and put on basically a conventional course for 20 or 30 kids to attend over 4 or 5 weeks.
And that's in North Bend, you think?
No, this is the rest of the county. North Bend they're using it actually as an as a class, an elective class. But Bandon and Coos Bay want to go with after school. They, of course, an instructor would have to be appointed to us to oversee us as instructors to make sure we're not overstepping.
Right. And that's all workable, it's all
Yeah.
doable.
But as soon as we can get it back in the schools, that'll help our end of it. And show them we can do it right.
I think we need to be in the school, and any of this opportunity
Yeah.
is what we need to do.
Ivan, what'd you have?
Well, I've had good luck with homeschool a lot. I just finished a class with 19 kids, 22 I written some stuff. And the total paid was $10 per kid. It works.
Yeah.
So a lot of homeschool kids are really good.
From our standpoint here, and Dave, I'll speak specifically to your example, we're all for it getting back into schools, but for ODFW staff as in general to jump in the arena with that, it gets political real fast. So we have to be careful on how we do things and how we approach things, unfortunately. So,
This approach that we had going, good move. And it's gonna be a school by school, and you're gonna have an administrator say no.
yeah,
They say thank you for entertaining the thought.
yeah. And it's something that's gonna take more more time and buy-in from our side of things to be able to get involved. I mean, I'm all supportive of it, and I'll help how I can, which was my response to yours too. I'm willing to help how I can, but right now I can't get too involved in it, because I know even like Randy has some stuff going on with outdoor school that he's involved in, and there's 3 or 4 other instructors that are not part of this group that are also working with schools. And I'm glad to see so many schools being interested. I mean, that's a big change and a needed change. But we've got to get to a point where we have a plan of this is how we're going to handle and approach the schools before we can really dive into it. So, Clyde?
Looking into the future, you're not envisioning conventional, traditional courses going down the road, are you?
No.
We have in my mind's eye, we have 2 types of parents. We have the parents that come from strong, traditional hunting families, communities, and then we have the parents that are more or less new to the outdoors, the hunting. The guy at work talked dad into going hunting with him, and they come in, and they're the ones that, they're not married to anything. They just need to do hunter's ed, and they'll do a traditional course, but they would prefer the online course because it's easy.
Yeah. As far as conventional courses go, as long as kids will sign up for them, I'm all for them. I mean, there's just, with the way things are today with kids, if you sign up or if you register to do a conventional class, you got to know how many kids is your minimum for your time, because if it doesn't fill up, there's not a lot we can do about it at this point. Some areas they fill up fast and it's not a problem. There's other areas that kids just don't sign up for the conventionals like they used to. They all want it quick and easy and not a lot of time invested.
You know, 20 years ago, we could have a class of 45 expected.
Yeah.
Now we'll probably, in May, we'd be lucky to have 40.
Yep. Unfortunately, it's just the way it is. People don't want to invest the time into something that is important. But keeping the numbers of classes out there, even the field day classes, but keeping the numbers up to a point where we can accommodate all the kids we need to is important. Because I don't ever want to see Oregon end up being a Georgia. I don't want to do an online only for kids. It's not something I'm interested in being part of. And that's what happens when they don't have enough instructors and enough classes to meet the need of the public, is they get forced to do that, and I don't want that for our program. So that's another reason why keeping enough classes out there and getting you guys as much help as I can on the recruiting and training side of things is goal number 1 for me right now. So, Ivan?
I like to remind folks that kids today are busier than we ever were. And it's not uncommon, some of these kids are playing 4 or 5 sports, not 2 or 3 sports.
Yeah.
They're playing sports all year round. Some high school players. That's my competition. Okay, we have kids who want to take class, but it interferes with baseball practice. And baseball practice interferes with softball practice. Softball practice interferes with football practice, basketball practice. That's what I have trouble with. And that's all it is. That's our challenge. We're competing for their time, and the parents are congratulations.
Yeah. Well, and everybody wants their kid to be the next Ken Griffey Jr. So, I mean, that's what it comes down to. We're going to spend the time to get our kid noticed, and it's become a business as much as it is a sport in a lot of areas. I mean, there was a little bit of that when I was growing up, but it's gotten a lot bigger, and there's a lot of recruitment that goes on even at the high school level now in sports. So there's a lot of pressure. So we do have a lot of competing interests.
Is there any legal reason the
air gun trailer couldn't be allowed on school property?
Just depending on your school board.
It actually goes by county, I think it's by county rule, is the county rules in general. Some of them have it written in,
Hunter Ed's excluded?
no, they don't have it hunter ed is excluded, but any, it's, I forget how they word it, projectile, stuff, because I've seen it even, I heard a couple of schools, it's been a while since I heard it, but
Who had to ask who would you ask?
I'd probably say like a county commissioner or
What was the question?
about why, or if a pellet trailer, like the air guns would be allowed on school property.
Ask your, any subcommittee commissioner, that would be where your labor possible.
Yeah, I just know some of them, even like getting the National Archery in the Schools program, they have to get permission outside of even the school board sometimes to be able to allow that. Yeah.
Well, they might, because Oregon Trail, in their new, Merlin, I've been working with Oregon Trail. For us to have any type of firearm at all on campus at Oregon Trail, in one of their schools, we have to have a waiver from the city.
Yeah.
And that's,
Some of them might know, but some of them might, or will have to refer you higher up the chain too. Dave?
Our situation in Hardin County, we got a new high school principal, and we were invited to leave. The school board got a hold of it, and 2 days later, they were invited back. So I think it's the local school board.
I didn't think Harney County even had rules.
We got one. Well, I think it's your local school boards that make the rules.
In Lincoln County, so I had a superintendent. In Lincoln County, I had with this hunter ed class, the principal that allowed this class to happen for 3-4 years that we've been doing it, we did the non-functional orange firearm, the dummy firearm. We do that in 2 class periods. All the blinds had to be pulled, window on the door covered up, no photos, no phones, no cameras. I'd bring in 4 or 5 instructors, and we do the safe firearm handling with no dummy ammunition, just the firearm. We would do for 2 class periods the safe firearm handling. So, and I had at that point always notified the Newport Police Department, we're in this room, this time, doing this.
Oh,
And the sheriff's office. We are doing this in the school. And if there was a RSO or a school resource officer, they were invited to class too. And most of the time they would attend. And, in Lincoln County, that was the past practice that we've done for 3 or 4 years. And went over with the principal prior to doing this, got the board policies out, and being at the non-functional dummy firearms are not a firearm. You don't have to transfer them for the background check, if they're not a firearm. We met all the criteria of the school board's policy. So 1 hour before the class is gonna go off, the anti-gun superintendent finds out about it, and this will not happen in my school. And I'm shut down.
Yeah.
So it comes down to the local like you said, the principal, they'll burn you down, and then
the school board runs the show.
the school board does run the show.
Theoretically.
Well, theoretically, there's a lot of politics.
It comes down to the first person that you're going to run into that's going to give you a problem. I mean,
Well, that's why we were low key in doing it.
Ivan?
There's a school board association meeting every year. ESD meets periodically with schools within their ESD zone and region.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever considered making
I hadn't really looked at it yet, no.
I would be happy to help you if you, wanna do that. Well, I'd be more than happy to help you, I know that. Thank you, brother.
All right, guys, we got through. Does anybody have any questions on the online content, the information that we're working on building on a sharing platform? Are we done with that subject? Okay. So we're a little ahead of schedule on that. We got through it quicker. So I'm going to move to our next item on the agenda for the trainers, new instructor training and recruitment. We've already talked about recruitment a bit and some of the strategies we're working on for recruiting new instructors. The other part of it is I want to talk to you guys about our training program and what we're trying to accomplish with it. So a couple years ago, we started putting together a basic new instructor training program that's mostly been ran by staff and a few instructors that work with us quite frequently. We're training them on a basic hunter ed field day. So the basic classes that we go out and run and teach in areas of need as staff is what we're using for our platform for training. It gives new instructors a basic idea of what a hunter ed field day looks like, what the flow is, the topics that need to be covered and talked about in each of the different sections, and how to lead those different sections. What we're trying to do is get that more consistent and available across the state as far as being able to get people trained in a timely manner. Most of the classes have been taught on this side of the state because this is where we have the most resources to get that done. So what I'm going to be doing this year is doing some train the trainer classes where I am asking if you guys are available to come and attend so you can be a resource trainer for us so that I can send a new person in your area to your class knowing that they need to learn how to run a field trail and that you know the basic way of teaching how to run a field trail. The reason I'm asking for it to be trained in the manner that we do it is so it's consistent across the board. So if I send a student to Topper and he goes through it with Topper, and then the next weekend he goes and teaches with Brian, Brian knows what he was taught. I know everybody's trails have little different nuances that they do a little different than what our program does or stuff like that, and that's fine. They can learn that on the fly. But the basics of how to run a field day needs to be taught as a basic, this is how you run a field day. So that way we're consistent and everybody here knows what a new person was taught. Does that make sense? So what I'm asking is as I start scheduling some of these train the trainer classes, I'll send you guys the dates that are available, and when one's close to you, I'd like you guys to consider coming and learn to be a trainer and a resource for those new instructors to be sent to you. And that also gives you the benefit of getting extra help in your classes. I've very rarely taken somebody to teach in an area that they helped out and then they want to go back and help there again because they had fun and they enjoyed the instructors there, and they, you know, if they're close to you, they're going to be willing to come help your classes because that's also where they got trained. Does that make sense? Okay. I was trying to get one, I've been working with Brian about one in Redmond, but we're having some issues with the availability of the range. So I would actually like to, where's Emmett hiding? Emmett, I'd like to see if you could find something over in your neck of the woods, a place where we could put on a new instructor training, and the new instructor training format is basically all the new instructors come over. We teach them on a Saturday how to conduct their self in a field day class. So everybody gets taught on what the classroom looks like, what the paperwork is, and then we break the students up, and each of them get taught one of 3 stations. They get taught either the Hunter's Trail, action sets, or live fire. Then the next day we have student classes come in, and they get a chance to lead those student classes on the ones they trained on. So then they've gotten trained, and they've gotten a chance to practice that. Then the other stations that they don't get in these new instructor trainings is where I need our individual trainers, so where I can say, hey, Brian, I got this guy who needs to learn how to do Hunter's Trail. He's done range and he's done action sets. He still needs trail. Can you pair him with somebody, or can you help him do that at your class? Okay, that way we can get everybody trained and up to speed. How many of you guys actually got training when you came on board? A few of you? Yeah. Yeah. One,
Prior to the guy with the British accent, Lincoln, this is a long time ago, many directors ago, Lincoln County collapsed. Somebody from ODFWs in Portland came down to Newport, and they got 5 instructors trained in 2.5 hours and cut it loose.
yeah.
That was a long time ago.
So,
But you're still here.
Still here,
so when I came on board about 12 years ago, my training was I got sent to another instructor's class to watch his class. And this is exactly what happened. All right, class, we're going to turn to, let's see here, let's go to page 4. And I'm going to start reading this to you. You guys follow along. And that was the entire class, was reading this book out loud. So I was fortunate. I figured out, I got some stuff from James and Myrna. I started doing some of my own classes, and then I paired up with Gordon Brown, who had a bunch of other stuff already laid out, PowerPoints and whatnot, and went from there. But there's a lot of inconsistency. I find some people have had training, some people had good examples of other instructors. Just depends on what area you started in. But we're trying to get a consistency in the training programs and trying to utilize your guys' knowledge before you guys decide to tell us that you don't want to do this anymore or can't do this anymore. That's the goal anyways. So I'd like to try to get these trainings around the state. To start with, I need I'm asking for a 1-day train the trainer from you guys, where we're just gonna, I don't need to teach you guys how to run a field trail. I just need to show you the format that we're training it in. So it'd just be a 1-day overview teaching, and if I can get a group of instructors, at least, I'd say at least 3 to 5, I can run a training with that. It'll just be me. I'll bring my equipment, and I'll come show you guys how we're training these classes.
You say it's is it 5, 6 hours that you get?
Yeah, about that. That's for the train the trainer. On the training, on the new instructor training, it's all day Saturday, and then it's field classes on Sunday. And the format that we run it, where it's three classes but staggered starts. That way, the reason we do it that way is it maximizes it. So typically in a new instructor training, we'll have 3 people learning live fire, 3 people learning action sets, and 3 people learning the trail. Running 3 classes, each one of them get a section to teach. To be the lead. Yeah, with the trainer with them. They're not left alone. Greg?
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
Mhm.
in my opinion, I mean.
Yeah.
Wrong, but like with Emmett and Steve, with Jim and I's class, way.
Mhm.
Okay. So my suggestion would be is if you've got a group of instructors, I like your idea, what you're doing. If you got a group of instructors that are new and they can travel and they want to come to like our classes and do just like we did, every instructor that's going through that we put into our program, they come in and they actually become part of the class and we do it at safe levels, at whatever they feel comfortable with, their risk level. And then we eventually immerse them further and further into the program. And we have our program split up so the instructors do different roles,
Mhm.
right? You're in charge of getting all the paperwork and all that kind of stuff done and the testing and everything. And then we have, the different stations in the, in the, like a range experience or even in the classroom experience. Everybody's got a role and then we kind of switch those roles around. But I mean, gosh, we have the program in place right there. But the instructors that have to be willing to travel to actually come into our class, especially for a field day, just be a one-day shot. But in classroom, it'd be a little bit harder.
So follow-up training, that is the idea, is that they come to you and learn as long as you guys have, as somebody in your group has gone through the train the trainer. The reason for this, Greg, and what I'm trying to create in the consistency is you do your trail, Hunter's Trail, different probably than I do mine, and different than maybe Brian does his. It doesn't mean that they're wrong. They just have to have the core content in it, which is what I'm teaching the new instructors, that this is our core content. There can be other things in it, and it can be done slightly different, but this is the core content that has to be there. And I need the new instructors to know that, because I've never done a trail with you, so I don't know what yours looks like to say, yeah, just go learn it from Greg and you'll be fine. I'm sure they would be, but I need that consistency across the state. Yeah.
You have to have that consistency. If you don't have it, I agree with you. I should be able to go to Brian's class or Ivan's class, and I should see similarities there. That we all reach the common goal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the point of these trainings, and that's what I'm asking for your guys' help with, is that you become a trainer so that I do have that ability that, hey, this guy's gone through a a new instructor training, and he has some of his stations, but he doesn't have more. There's a couple he needs. Can he go to Greg's class and learn one of the stations that he hasn't done yet? That's what I need, because I can't continue to have the same people come to 3 different training classes across the state. One time over in LeGrand, one time E.E. Wilson, and then one time down south for 3 weekends worth of training just to get all the stations covered. Get them in the new instructor training, give them classroom and one basic class or one station that they're solid in, and then send them out to the rest of to somebody else, a trainer near them, to get the other parts done. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah. No, in Canyonville we just went. It was just an overview of how we were doing. Yeah, we did do the basics of the different stations.
So isn't that basically what you just talked about, going through each station so we all do it similarly?
Yeah, but
So we've done that.
some of you guys have done that part.
But there's a lot of new instructors that haven't done it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of us here, well, I won't say a lot, but a few probably, that haven't done it exactly. Your core setup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know who has the field day down like professional? Is the guys at EKF that I go up with. They have the most organized, successful field day, and I've stolen from them because I like some of their process. Emails that go out ahead of time, assignment of stations, questions. You should get Trigby's formula. And
For the training program and purposes, I know there's a lot of guys in the room that do a great job of different, the classes and how they organize them. I haven't seen Trigby's myself. But for the purposes of the training, though, it is the core mandatory curriculum. This is the basics, what you have to have, what you have to know to teach these to meet the class requirements. We can't go right to, in training purposes, I couldn't go and teach one person's field day over another person's field day. It's just going to be the basic, and then the teams they go and learn from, they'll adapt to those teams that they get involved with.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, but it's an example of all those processes. So what are you asking them? You want to raise hands? You want to write down on a sheet?
No, I'm just asking it when I start posting these train the trainers in different areas, that if you, yeah. And then when we do new instructor training, we'll also throw out an email that we're doing a new instructor training and we're looking for people to come in and help teach them. So if you have time and want to come involve that and watch the new instructors be successful the next day and learn, see what they're learning and how they're doing it, you're more than welcome. Some of our guys in the room have trained with us. Randy's probably been to I think you've been to all of them, haven't you? Except for one. New instructor training. But the goal this year is to get more people involved and then also spread out further across the state. Clyde?
I really believe the best place for an instructor to learn the ropes in teaching hunters education is to actually be involved in a class.
I agree.
And I mean, of all the instructors that we've had join up and leave us in Clackamas County, we've always enforced that, hey, have you taken the class yourself? No, I never did take it. Okay, that's the first thing you gotta do. You gotta take the class. And, we have them do that. We have them come to Clyde's class or Bill's class at Douglas Ridge, and they are part of the instructional staff, and they get their feet wet. Some guys don't even know, they're scared to death to stand up in front of 5 people, let alone
Yeah. And I agree that they can get some good training in the classes, but it's a different level of training and a different understanding when they can get a day at a time with an experienced instructor and learn without the pressure of students in front of them. And that's what we're trying to give them in the new instructor training. But again, in one day, we can't teach them the entire class to be proficient at every station. That's why we're focusing on classroom and one other station that they spend time and practice in. And I'm not going to call out anybody that's in this room, but there is a couple people that have went through our new instructor training. If they're willing to, they can say what their experiences were with it. But we've had very good success at giving people a good training and helping them get a better comfort level when they actually go out and teach an actual class or get involved with another group of instructors when they've had time outside of students and feel they get more time to ask questions and practice things before they're thrown right into the fire trying to learn on the fly.
So you sign up to take this class, then you send us people and you want us to use them individually?
No, I'm not asking you to do that at that point. What the new instructors that get sent to you will already have classroom in one station. So they're going to have an idea of the flow of class and stuff like that. What I'd ask you to do is like have them shadow, if they need action sets, have them shadow you one class, and then the next time they come back, have them run it. Does that make sense? Does any of the guys that are here that went through training want to share your experience with it? Pat?
Yeah, I went through, actually, I think I've done it a couple times, but, what I found to be really helpful was the one day was training the trainer where Brandon, basically kind of, if I remember correctly how this exactly laid out, we had like 3 new instructors, and, I was kind of sitting back watching him train the trainers, and then, so we went through that whole process, and then the next day came back, and then I kind of took Brandon's place, and those new instructors then ran students through, and this was on Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm.
And, so I kind of got to watch him do that one day, and then got to step in the next day, and take on that role, working with, the new instructors on the live fire. And that was probably 2 of the best days of training for me. It was really helpful.
Okay. Randy, you got anything to add for your experiences as a trainer? What you've seen out of the new instructors?
I think that sometimes with it, these instructors come in and they're a little tentative. And then as we get them through and I drill them, and I've used that instructor, that suits me a little bit. So if they're coming for change, they get a little louder as the days go on. And then when they get really good, they really excel. That's something that
Brandon and Andy, you got anything to add?
I guess I just got something just for clarification piece, on there's a new instructor trainer and then there's the trainer, right? You could be the best instructor in the world as far as teaching students, but you might struggle with teaching a peer how to do the same thing. So that's the trainer is giving the skill sets to you, so when those people come in, it's easier and you know expectations and all of that for helping them. And then the new instructor trainer is obviously towards the students. So just like Pat was saying, I believe in the leadership concept of, hey, let me show you how to do this, and then I'm going to expect you to perform, instead of just let me see what you got, and then we'll go from there. And so, like with Pat, that's what I did. I just said, hey, I just want you to kind of hang back and absorb stuff. If you have questions, ask your questions. And I worked with the new people that day, and me and Pat were chatting all throughout the day. And then the next day, hey, Pat, they're yours. Based off of the previous day, the new instructors, who do you think they were talking to or trying to talk to the majority of the day? Me, right? Because I was with them. And I told them, nope, you're not allowed to talk to me. Pat's your guy. Because Pat needs to understand how to field those questions and help people. So even though we're only focusing on one portion, I think we all know just getting new people to the point to where they're comfortable standing in front of people and just doing a basic introduction, right? I'm sure we've all seen that. People are like, oh, I can teach. Oh, well, introduce yourself in front of everybody. Right? So that's a big portion of the beginning, is just getting that introduction down, feeling comfortable how to manage your class, and then they're there for a reason, right? Especially for us, with us being on the range, we're making sure that people have like RSO certifications already coming into that. If you have an RSO certification, sorry, we're putting you on the range because that's going to be the easiest thing, and we're just doing that for ease. But the learning objectives and them understanding what they need to be doing and how to handle the range is really the easy part for us. It's the most dangerous part, but the flow of the range is pretty easy. Giving them the confidence to stand in front is what we're going for. Making sure that they can control the class, they have their head on a swivel, kids aren't allowed to dork around and that kind of stuff. It's just a managing portion. So I just wanted to make that distinction of train the trainer, or teaching Pat how to teach the new people coming in, and then the new instructor training, it just being 2 different everybody here is an asset in that train-the-trainer compartment. You guys have been doing this for years. There might be like little debates on how things are done, but we all agree in general, like how things should be done. What I mean by little debates is how long should your hunter's trail be, how thick you should be laying the blood, minor stuff, right? So I just wanted to say that really quick in those differences, and I can tell you from going out and doing this, out of the people that work with this in the room, you're a huge asset. Everybody in here is a huge asset in coming into those classes and giving your perspective, because we take your feedback and Pat gave some suggestions on working with people and where they were placed on the range, right? We all know new instructors want to be up front, they want to see stuff. Well, yeah, but you're standing in front of the students that are watching. You guys need to be behind observing, not right up on the line. So that's all I had to say. I'm done talking about it. I can bore you to death. Back to you, Gary.
Thanks, Brandon. So the other thing that by doing the trainings that we're trying to avoid, and I'm not going to call the instructor out by name. He's not part of this group. He's a newer instructor actually in the Central Oregon area. Came to our training over in Madras and did a really good job trying to get involved. We were doing the training day. I think he was on action sets and he had learned classroom. Well, when we laid out our schedule of who was going to teach what, he was on action sets, but he wasn't on classroom. And we had an instructor get sick Saturday night and have to go home and wasn't going to be there Sunday. Well, that instructor was signed up to teach classroom. So I asked all the instructors Sunday morning, hey, who wants to cover classroom, or do I just need to do it? And this gentleman quite bravely volunteered to stand up and do the class. So we go to start the class, and I'm standing at the back of the class watching, and he gets ready to start. He got his name out, then he started to turn red in the face, and I started to worry that he was about to pass out. And about the time I started to take a step forward, you hear this, and then he just starts talking, and he was fine. But for a minute there, I thought I was going to lose an instructor right then and there. I thought he was going to double over backwards. But it's the training, the purpose of the training is to instill that confidence. If they can learn a couple of the stations and get a chance to practice at least one station, then when they come out there and work with you guys and there's a little less training control, then they're not as nervous to get involved. There's several of you guys in here that I've helped get involved in Hunter Ed, and I've helped train, and some of you guys that I didn't know if you guys were going to be able to speak in front of groups when I first started working with you. And I'm not going to call you out, but yeah, they've come a long ways, and they've done a really good job picking that stuff up. And if it ever fails for me to get somebody to open up, I just stick them with Brandon, and nobody can be quiet when they're working with Brandon. He doesn't allow it. Right, Brandon? Yeah. He's going to get, he gets everybody talking, and it's a great thing. So, and Andy's done a good job helping with the training, too. Andy does some pretty cool things with getting kids up and going and active when they look like they're asleep when they show up at class. Yeah, they want you to wake them up, Andy. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, like Brandon said, you guys are all assets. You guys have a lot of information that we need passed on to new instructors, and we need to get you guys more help. I mean, how many people feel like they got enough instructors all the time? Yeah, it's a pretty consistent problem, so we need to solve that and get that, get more people involved. Yeah. I'm going to go in zones. My goal is to do 6 train the trainers this year. I'm working on 3 right now this first half of the year, and then I'll see where my training needs are from there. Most all of them are going to be they're going to be followed by a new instructor training. So hopefully the people that come to train the trainer will have a chance to come and go through and work with a group of new instructors. Obviously, I can't promise to have one in every county, but I'm going to try to have one spread out across the state. I mentioned to Emmett already, I'd like to look at his area. And actually, Clyde, we talked about possibly seeing if we could do Canby Rod and Gun Club for one, rather than just keep doing E.E. Wilson, because there's some Portland instructors that would like something closer.
Talking with Steve here that, we got the annual county meeting coming up, but maybe we could incorporate what we're talking about doing with that meeting.
Okay.
That way we have the staff, our instructors, they'd be there, because you set a special date and
Yeah.
I can't do that, I gotta go fishing and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But most of them that are active instructors are, committed to coming to the county meeting. And maybe, I wanna talk to you, maybe we can do that then.
Yeah.
But that's it can be, and if that washes out, because we need to range, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we can do Douglas Ridge, or I got a board member for Estacada Rod and Gun here with me now, so.
Okay.
Maybe we can.
Train the trainer could be, we can do a mock range. We don't have to have the actual range, but new instructor training, we would need the range.
We'll talk.
Okay. We got, the only one we have on the books right now, we have February 4th down in Denman Wildlife Area, Central Point. We'll be doing a Train the Trainer on February 4th. A couple people that are here are already committed to that, and another instructor down there is coming too. And we have a new instructor training down there in March that will be running any new instructors that sign up for it down there. We can cover some travel expense and stuff too if people have to travel for it, but we are trying to get, just like the Hunter Ed students, we're trying to get everybody to the closest one to them so we don't get too much cross the state travel. Any questions on that? Okay, if anybody wants to join in on the Denman one on the 4th and you have time, come see me, talk to me before the end of the day. We'll see what we can get worked out. I got room, I could take 2 or 3 more instructors, so. All right, and if anybody else thinks that they have room in their area that would work, Portland's the one that right now is, people want it to be a little closer than E.E. Wilson is to them. And Portland's a hard one because it can take an hour and a half, 2 hours just to drive across town sometimes. So being closer to somebody's house is a little different there than it is out in other areas. Any other questions on the training program?
So break time or whatever's a good time for both of us. Let's talk about that April dates that we
Okay.
talked about.
Yeah.
I just want to tell you that so that between the two of us it happens.
Okay. Steve? Yes. Yep. As far as yeah, train the trainer. You just recently went through the new instructor training and stuff. That is the difference in that is the trainers is all experienced instructors that are going to be helping run those stations that everybody goes through at the training classes, all the new instructors. So like where you would have worked with Brandon or Andy or myself on a class or on a section of the class, you might work with Brian if he's at one of them, and he'd be leading your section with of new instructors.
This influx of new instructors that are possibly signing up at the shows.
Yeah, I'm trying to have more dates than just the March one before the shows start. That's kind of one of the reasons why I'm trying to work with Brian on dates and Emmett and Clyde about trying to find places to do it. I mean, I have the easy places to do it, like E. Wilson and Denman are our wildlife areas. I can schedule stuff there pretty much all the time. Don't have an issue with that, but we're trying to get spread out a little more and be able to be a little closer to other instructors, like I said, the Portland group. There's quite a few new instructors in the Portland area that want classes, but E. Wilson's a 2.5 hour drive for them. So they don't really have the setup for the classroom portion. What's that? Yeah, we're not going out on that beach. Yeah, no.
Once we narrow down locations and dates, we'll not only post them online for you guys, but probably email blast you so that you can get the information before the tour shows or, around the time so you put it out to some of the new volunteers that are signing up.
Last thing we'll talk about before lunchtime is talk about the sportsman shows that are on the books and scheduled. We got some of the people that are in charge of those sportsman shows. Gordon's in charge of the Albany class or sportsman show for getting volunteers signed up. Ivan is doing our Eugene one. Eli here is doing the Medford one. Is there anybody else? And Steve, yeah, is doing our Roseburg one. So that's 4 out of 5. The only one we're missing is Johnny over in, yeah. Johnny Rule is the one that's doing the Redmond one. So if any of you guys are available and want to help man a booth in your area or one you can get to, please see those people and talk to them about getting on the schedule to be there. And basically, you're just there handing out information, greeting people, and talking to them about the Hunter Ed program and the value of being part of the program. Because hopefully, even after all these years, you guys still consider it value being part of our program. I don't know what's going on with the Portland one.
We'll have staff at the Portland show and be able to pitch the little bit there. Some other folks come in.
Basically, and like I said before, we're trying to look for any other opportunities we can get in front of a lot of people. So if we can go to sportsman shows and gun shows where they have several thousand people come through over a weekend, that's a great place to recruit. But also I'd like to throw out there too is don't overlook the value of recruiting in your classes. Those parents that are right there. Myrna's been working on updating a handout thing that we have. Right now we're going to be using a temporary version of it. We'll get it finalized in the future. But the neat thing about that is it's going to have a QR code on it that they can scan that QR code and go right to the website where their application is. So if we can get those out into classes and stuff, recruit right into classes, and you just, that way you don't have to worry about getting them information or trying to direct them somewhere. You can just say, here, scan this, and it gives you exactly where they got to go to sign up. Gordon?
Also, look at, if you're a member of OHA, Mule Deer Foundation, Backcountry Hunters,
Mm-hmm.
Instructor Unlimited, we should be hitting those folks up because they teach the 3 R's, and this is the ground floor.
Yeah, things like that I'm happy to go to, or I'm happy to give you the information and have you guys go to it if you have time. They're great places to recruit from, and I'm all for that. We're not the only organization running into the same problem. Even all those ones you just named are running into the same problems we are. They need more members. They're trying to recruit more members. And they're trying to get more active participation in their stuff. So the one thing that I was talking to Eli earlier, because I'm inviting some of them to the statewide this year, like OHA and stuff. If we want them to let us come and recruit their people, we also have to have them be willing to let them come pitch their program too. So we will hear some of that stuff where they're talking about what their current projects are. I mean, I think everybody knows who OHA is, but it's kind of cool to hear some of the things that maybe you didn't know they were involved in, things they're working on. How many are OHA members already? Quite a few. So.
And I'm your southeast director, so if you got anything for me there?
What you got, Randy?
I think we need to hit on the youth instructor too. 'Cause that's
Yeah.
the future.
I have some plans in the works on that. I'm not ready to roll those out because I got to nail down some details of that. There's a couple things like that I've got projects in the works for how we're changing up some things and things we're going to offer. But I have to get the detail side of things to make sure they're going to fly before I roll them out, because I don't want to say, hey, I'm doing this, and then have it get shut down. So.
Yeah, I understand the need for you and more instructors, but a place to shoot is still an issue.
Yeah.
Clackamas County is involved in 3 different ranges.
Yeah. I've been trying to work on that end of things. The International Hunter Education Association is trying to put a work group together to work on that problem, which I have volunteered to be part of that thing, but they so far haven't got that board set up.
We have another 15 new instructors in Clackamas County, and if they don't have a place to shoot, they don't have classes.
I agree.
So we're kind of handcuffing them right from the get-go.
Yeah. I agree. We got to have different places. I mean, we're running into the same thing in northeast Portland in Multnomah County right now. Our only real place to teach classes is Portland Gun Club. And I'm not going to say what's that? I'm not going to say what I currently think about the location and going to that range, because it's a lot different than what it was even a year and a half, 2 years ago.
There's the Portland Rifle and Pistol Club also, which is all totally indoor, but it's a very limited facility.
Yeah, and they haven't been interested in having us in there the last, yeah. So the only place we've been able to get into is the Portland Gun Club, and it's a decent enough facility to teach at, but it's the environment around it that is a problem. We didn't teach there really much at all last year, but we're still doing classes there if we can get the instructors.
What was the reason you weren't shooting?
We were shooting.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, we can shoot there. Has nothing to do with the range. It has to do with the area around it. One of our last hunter ed classes there, while we were running Hunter's Trail, there was a guy down in the brush off the end of our trail going to the bathroom. All the kids could see him with his pants down around his ankles while he's going to the bathroom. So there's just a lot of interesting things going on up there that,
Portland, sure, it's just Portland, what's wrong with that?
yeah. So, I mean, it's just a matter of finding locations or working with people to be able to access the locations if they exist already. And it's a nationwide problem, not just here. Brandon?
When I get back on the sports show thing, Steve, I've set that booth up before, and Doug asked me to talk to you. Come link up with me, and I can help you out. He is at some crazy thing with his daughter. He's like being nationally recruited for softball. So. Oh, he's gonna make it down to the show, but I can talk logistics with you.
Thank you. So, again, if you guys have time and can help with the shows down there, just a little bit of time helps. I think most of them are set up to be like 3-hour shifts, or whatever you have time to do. So, and those of you guys that are running yours, Ivan, I know I saw your schedule already. If you guys need some help with them, let me know. Okay. Any questions on any of that? Wow. We're getting a lot done in a short amount of time. Roger, you want to talk about Vim? Yeah, we'll have time today. Do I? Dot. Let's see.
All right. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Ron from the Information Education Division Administrator. Sorry for my voice, I'm getting over it. I took the COVID test this morning, I'm all clear. But I'm gonna keep it short so I don't lose my voice. For the background on this, for folks that aren't familiar with this, I'll quickly go through it. The Volunteer and Event Management System is something that the agency's been working on for a while. Up until when the electronic license system went live in 2018, 2019 timeframe, we managed Hunter Ed and most of our workshops and events through that license system that was in place at that time. The new license system, the company that built that, did not include the ability to manage workshops and take registration for workshops and events and manage our Hunter Education program. So since then, we've been doing this manually. When I say we, Myrna, Jeanette, and others have been doing all this stuff manually by paperwork and putting stuff classes up on the electronic license system for folks to register for, and then managing all the back-end paperwork that relates to tracking volunteer hours and all of that manually. So there's been an effort underway to find a company to develop a system to do this. The state process for getting out bids for software contracts and computer system development is cumbersome, but it takes a lot of time to get through. So we took about a year to go through the bidding process and get a company lined up. That company, S3, develops license systems for other states. And they were going to do 2 projects. They were going to do one, a custom build system for Oregon, and at the same time they were going to develop a model of this volunteer event management system that they could send or sell to other states. We were in project work with them, and about a year ago, they proposed switching direction a little bit and just rolling ours in to do just as a standard system that would be shipped out to everybody else, that could be available to everybody. So we had to make a few changes in how we were going to approach our system. So there's been a few delays, not related to development, but some of the back-end stuff, just like any software development system. The latest is, though, at this point, development is underway. They are doing work on it. We've seen design work. We've seen some of the technical capacity they've built. And it's going to be a pretty impressive system. It's just the timing for when it comes online. The latest projected schedule is in February to March timeframe, they'll have system software for folks to be testing and actually working through it and seeing that it's doing what we expect it to do. Ideal rollout of this to go live will be in the May-June timeframe. It's possible that timeframe will slip a little bit again. That seems to always happen on these big software projects. So sometime in 2023, we hope it's going to come. We expect it to come through, and the intent would be to have lots of training and available for everybody before it goes live. Just some of the highlights of it. The main parts it'll do is it'll manage the registration for classes and workshops and events. People will actually go online, they'll create an account, they'll go in, sign up for a Hunter Ed class or a field day. They'll also be able to volunteer. People will be able to volunteer through the system as well. Some of the features that are built into this is when they've gone through and they've completed their course, they'll actually be able to go in and print their temporary certificate, and they'll be able to access that for a long time afterwards. That'll get rid of some of the issue of volunteer cards, or duplicate card situation. People will go back in and find, the kids lost their certificate and they need it, they can go back in and print their own. We'll still be able to do the hard card process where the information will come out of the class when you close the class or the registration is closed and class is completed. We'll send it to a printing company and they'll get the cards printed and sent off to everybody. So those are some of the big features of it, but again, the main part is it'll be allow people to go in, register for classes themselves. It'll all be done electronically. They'll pay online. Rosters will be available. You'll be able to look at the rosters and attendees. So lead instructors, area coordinators will have access to this, so you'll be able to look at, should be able to go in and look at how fast is a class filling, how many spaces you have available, that type of stuff. And then print off rosters and all of that. So some of the stuff that's being done manually should be able to be done electronically, which ought to speed things up and hopefully will help everybody work a little bit better. Again, you'll be able to look at how many the students that are registered. You'll be able to log in whether they say whether they've been there, and then submit student scores. You'll also be able to go in and capture and submit your volunteer hours, which is the other important part for us. And it'll all be done electronically. Volunteer rosters, people will have to sign up to be volunteers, or you could actually recruit volunteers that you know that you want to work with, that you regularly work with, but they'll go in and sign up for an event or a workshop to be a volunteer for that. So you'll be able to have access to who those folks are. Be able to see those, you'll be able to report your hours and then submit all your volunteer hours. And then out of that, we'll process the stipend for folks. This is kind of the highest level. I'm staying at a pretty high level because we haven't really gotten in to see all of it, how it's going to work. When we get into that, there'll be more information we can share with folks. One of the things that this will also do is allow for walk-ins. Those folks that, you have a couple spots you want to save open, or the idea of this possibility of you've got people that suddenly show up or something like that, be able to go ahead and get them in and allow them to pay. All this would be accessible and usable off of a person's smartphone. Folks are doing a lot of that. I know in some cases that will not be feasible because, you don't have great cell reception or something like that, but we've all walked around, we've seen so many people stuck down and looking at everything on their phone right now. People are figuring out how to do it. The intent will be on that walk-in, it'll be open as soon as the class registration has closed, and then up to a couple days afterwards. So for those situations, somebody comes in that goes, well, I don't have access or whatever, they can go in and do the walk-in code afterwards and actually pay for the class. Again, high level, very high level, but things are moving. We expect that that if all goes according to schedule and we have some live stuff that we can demonstrate, we're hoping that at the statewide conference that they'll actually be able to do some training for folks at that point and give you a chance to get in, get your hands dirty, see how it's going to work. Some of our testing planning, as we've talked about, having some instructors and volunteers come in and help with the testing just to see whether it works the way we think it should. and kind of provide some feedback to the programmers that are actually developing this. Myrna, Jeanette, you guys have been involved in some of this as well. Any other points that we ought to highlight for folks? No? Questions? It's not really a unicorn that actually is real. I mean, it is coming. It's coming. Yeah. I'm not going to be pin me down to that. I'll tell you the best guess is the latest projection is sometime like this spring, May, June time frame.
I'm from Sarah. I had another question. It seems like we're spending a lot, you guys are spending a lot of money for a program that really is inefficient. I guess my thought is, how do you guys feel about it? Since we're the ones that would like to see the results, if you guys are in the same boat, is there, well, it just seems like the squeaky wheel would get the green.
So we went through the bid process on this, and I was involved in some of that. This company submitted a bid. They haven't gotten paid yet. So it's their interest in getting this moving. And they will get a transaction fee on it, similar to like our license systems, where every transaction they do, they'll get a payment on that. And the other thing that we talked earlier about the data and knowing when people have signed up for classes and what the demand is. That's one of the things that will be nice is the access to that data at a much more real time. Instead of having to wait and do it manually, we'll be able to dig in and look at that stuff in more real time and actually make some projections about where there's need, when people are signing up for classes, when they fill, et cetera. Yeah.
Do you know yet if an instructor has forgotten their username or password, if they'll be able to reset that themselves, or whether we have to involve minors?
I don't know for sure on that. I'm sure the programmers have figured all that stuff. It probably, I don't know. More to come. Hopefully it will be simple. Yeah. Gordon.
Is any other state on board with the same system, or, and I'm kind of wondering, what are the other states doing? Do they have a model that could plug in right away and use, or?
No, there was nothing out there. When we looked, there was nothing out there that was this comprehensive. So it was a bit of a challenge. There were some states that had it built into their license system, but we didn't go with one of those vendors as an agency. This company is actually does license systems as well, and then they are also shopping this around to some other states, and there's interest in it. So they haven't launched it yet, but again, so far it looks pretty good. I'm optimistic that it's gonna work, but like any system, there will undoubtedly be some bugs at the first that we have to work through. Yeah.
I think this system very similar to North Carolina. It just works really well. You see all the instructors in the state. It shows like basic classes on calendar and how the state breaks into different districts. There you go. It shows all the day orders and activity classes and whatnot. It's a good system.
Yeah, we went into the contract with this company and we're pretty much committed. We had to follow through on it. If it falls through, which we hope it won't, then we have to go back out to the bid process. So we're tied to the hip right now, but again, the company's moving forward. Yes, sir.
Yeah, just verifying this isn't the same company that does Idaho license.
No. Which one? Because they've been through a couple versions. Any other questions? All right. Get you up to lunchtime. Thanks for putting me before lunch. That way people make it easy. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I could be that. One of those hot mic instances.
All All right, so we're pretty well ahead of schedule. So if we get done with the normal schedule that's on here, we're going to do a little bit of breakout and kind of talk in groups of our zones and be able to work through some of that stuff and how you guys want to communicate in your zones with each other once we start using that data. So I'm actually going to cut you guys loose about 10 minutes early for lunch. I'm not sure that it's ready quite yet, but use the time. Looks like it is ready, but use the restroom. There's fresh drinks on the back table. Food's in the same room. You got breakfast in. All right? 1 o'clock.